Holy bootleg Batman. Here's your look at a knockoff NECA Toys Batman Begins Batman. As a child, Bruce Wayne watched his parents murder in the streets of Gotham City. After searching the world for answers to injustice, he returned to the city he loved to restore it to its grandeur. The task is larger than a mere man can accomplish, so Wayne assumes the guise of Batman to battle the forces that are destroying Gotham's soul. Before we take to looking at the Dark Knight's knockoff, the first thing we're going to want to do is figure out how tall bootleg Batman actually stands. This is a bootleg that I picked up over on AliExpress. It seems to be my go-to place if I want to find knockoff figures. And the whole reasoning why, again, I pick these ones up is I know many of you collectors out there are curious when you see these postings, whether it be on eBay, whether it be on AliExpress, and you really want to know how bad these figures actually are. Here I swoop in and pick these ones up for myself, and then I can show you in these reviews just how bad these knockoffs actually are. The figure of Batman stands 7.066 inches in height. We can quickly switch that to centimeters, revealing that the figure stands 18 centimeters, well, 17.9 to be exact. Yeah, it really did start more out of curiosity than anything else. The first one that I picked up was a Jason Voorhees, and I was curious. Is it worth picking up this knockoff figure, or if it was going to be absolute garbage? Well, it ended up not being too bad of a figure, but now my curiosity has gone further, and I picked up a couple more of these just to see how good or bad they actually are. For the accessories that come included with Batman, we'll have a look at those right now. The things that will be most likely to lose, and you get two versions of them, is this little tiny Batarang. Now, I would imagine, I'm going to lose this one for sure, this smaller one here. I would imagine these are exactly the same Batarang that came included with the figure the first time around. You have the larger of the two, which is, again, it's just all molded gold plastic. And then you have this extremely small little Batarang, which is smaller. I mean, it's about the width of my pinky fingernail. That is a really small Batarang, gonna be lost right away. He does come included technically with a hand that supports holding it. It's this hand right here, which is basically just a hand with a slot running straight through it. You can take either one of the Batarangs. I prefer to take the larger one because it's less likely to get lost. Oh, now I've jinxed myself by saying that. And that basically just fits into that slot like so. Just like that. Probably makes a little bit more sense. You know what? Let's do it this way. There we go. It doesn't hold the job greatest. I mean, if you tilt it upside down, does it survive the blizzard test? It does. And it really surprises me to say that. So it comes included with that. He comes included with another swappable hand as well. This is the hand for his grapple gun. Currently in the sockets of his forearms are just closed fists. Not the most exciting of things to say, I know. Nobody really is interested in closed fists. But he does, like I said, come included with his grapple gun. The grapple gun is decently painted. Again, considering that this is a knockoff. It's been painted in black, and I guess maybe if anything I could say the black, it doesn't look quite finished down below. But for the most part, it's actually not terrible. Now, the original figure had the following thing that I'm going to mention right now. The original figure had this, and I do recall when I first looked at this figure so many years ago that I had some real considerable problems getting this to stay onto the figure. I still do, but I think I've learned somewhat of a lesson from the last time I dealt with this. You basically just flip the figure around and locate it on the back. You're going to take this part right here, and I like to kind of put it in between, like the smallest section of his belt. I don't know if you can actually see it right there. See, it kind of lips, kind of just drops down a little bit. Well, I actually like to take that part and I line you. You basically have two parts of this clip. You have one side that's got 3 prongs, and then one side has 2 prongs. I take the side, and I don't know if it's the correct way, but I take the side that's got the 3 prongs, and it seems to do a better job of staying onto his belt. Then, carefully not drop the clip. Oh, I just jinxed myself by saying this. You can also technically take the grapple gun and try to fit it in there first, and then try to clip it onto his belt. But like I said, it tends not to do it the greatest of jobs. I didn't do too bad of a job when I first took this figure out of the packaging, but it seems every other time I've done it since, I can't quite get that clip to stay properly on his belt. Again, there could be a place that I'm missing, a better way to clip it onto his belt, but like I said, it just doesn't do the greatest of jobs. And then the idea is this is supposed to just clip onto his belt, and it's supposed to stay in place. Well, that's not really going to happen. So it comes included with those as your accessories. Then, of course, like I said, he does come with the swappable hands, which I guess we can go ahead and pull these ones out, because nobody really wants closed fists. They're super boring, I will admit that. Go ahead and just pop this out of his forearms, swap it out with the replacing hands. So even if I don't decide to display him with accessories, I do at least have those ready on the ready. So of course, if I just pop those out now, wiggle this one out. The plastic, I will say, just from the times that I've been popping the hands and putting them back in place, I thought if anything, the hand peg would be the first thing that would break on this figure. Surprisingly enough, not yet. Surprisingly, not yet. It will happen, I'm sure, if I'm not too careful. Go ahead and just pop that back into place. And now you've got your hands ready for holding the grapple gun, which you can go and put in between his fingers and his palm. And if you want to, you can take also his other Batarang, the larger of the two, and you can fit that also in his other hand like that. Just doesn't really stay very well in place. And it's really not faulting necessarily the knockoff. I don't think these accessories, specifically the Batarang and specifically that clip that goes onto his belt, I don't think it really stayed well in the first place. This one just doesn't do anything worse. It just has the same problems that the original figure had. Let's go ahead and just pull that out. And having a closer look at Christian Bale's Batman as a knockoff. Now, trying to remember the price point that I paid for this. It may have been about $15, $16. Sometimes it's more just an experiment than anything else, and you can luck out and just happen to get yourself a decent looking figure for the price point. Because after all, if you are trying to source out the original one that NECA Toys had put out so many years ago, it is going to be sometimes tough, and you're going to end up paying a lot more for it than maybe what you want to. I guess from that level of things, picking up these knockoffs, while I don't necessarily condone it, if you are trying to find a more cost-effective way of getting this guy, short of them actually re-releasing the figure again, then yeah, I guess $16 isn't that bad to swallow. Now, getting a closer look at the head sculpt, what does $16 give you? Well, it gives you an alright looking Batman bat cowl, but yes, there is some considerable issues with his face. One of which is being the fact that the paint from the point area of his nose, this area right here, I don't know why I'm drawing everyone's attention to his nose, but there's black that's obviously bled down to the rest of his face. I have seen some good and bad instances of this particular figure with some real visible spots across his face. In fact, I had a friend of mine who actually picked up the same figure and had some real serious issues where it almost looked like he had chicken pox or measles. I seem to have done better at this, but there are definitely problems when it comes to Batman's face. His lips specifically almost have a jaundice look to them. They almost have like an off yellowing color. And yeah, there are some visible spots there on the side. Not as bad as what I've seen. I think that I've gotten the better Batman of the bunch, but there are definitely problems with the paint when it comes to this area right here. The eyes are okay. I'm not necessarily going to fault the eyes, although this one pupil right here is sort of wandering off. What is it looking at that the other pupil apparently hasn't picked up? But it's not terrible. It is not terrible. Like, the head sculpt is pretty good. It doesn't seem like it has had any issues with reusing the existing mold that was circulating, I guess, the first time around. It's pretty clean. Like, the black is done pretty good. I just wish his face was a lot better than what it was. As for the rest of Batman's body, of course, he's got the cape that stretches underneath the cowl. And I guess if you wanted to, you could take this off, although it looks like it's been glued. There's a couple of peg points on either side, and it looks like they have been glued to his torso. So if you did want to remove the cape, it would involve you literally have to rip it off his body. And why would you want to do that? The cape material is a decent quality. There's no wire frame at all running the length of the front of the cape. Usually there's always a wire frame. I don't recall if the original Batman Begins Batman actually had one, but this one definitely doesn't have it. But the material is pretty good. It's sort of a stretchier material, and it flows pretty good on Batman, providing you kind of get it at the right, the right folding over. I kind of like to have the cape pulled back a little bit. It's not, like I said, a terrible looking cape at all. As for the detailing for the rest of his body, there's not really a whole lot of additional black or additional paint that's been added to it. It's basically just the molding of the plastic. Now, this is a figure that can pull that off because there are other figures that, of course, would have had additional coloring added to it. Batman can kind of get away with just being basic black. Joints are pretty tight on this guy, which we'll talk about on the articulation side of things in a second. I don't have any issues where the joints are super loose, even like the ball joint, which probably would be the loosest of the batch. It still is pretty good. Like I said, we'll talk about that in a second as well. The detailing on the utility belt is also pretty good. The gold and the black in the middle there with some additional silver paneled there on the side. This could possibly be a point where I could point out some of the paint that's overlapped onto the rest of the plastic. But again, it's not terrible. It's really not terrible at all. He's got a bit of a flat Batman behind. Why am I drawing everyone's attention to Batman's behind? It is a little on the flat side. This is one thing I've noticed with the earlier NECA figures, like specifically like the Adam West Batman, the Christopher Reeve Superman, and the Christian Bale Batman, all seem to suffer from really flat behinds. If that is a deal breaker for you, well, I'm sorry to hear that. It does seem like it's a slightly shinier plastic here in the behind. Why am I keep talking about this? Versus like the rest of the legs. The rest of the legs are a little bit more of a like matte black. The detailing's done pretty good. I will say, though, looking at the original mold, because again, I don't think they've changed anything from the bootleg that we're looking at here to the original one. He does have very spindly looking legs. Very, very thin legs, especially thin calves. But again, like I think the original figure was like that. And really, like the Christopher Reeve Superman had this. The Adam West Batman had this as well. Really, really thin proportions when it came to the legs. For the articulation here on Batman, let's go ahead and look at that right now. His head rotates back and forth. It does move slightly up and down, but more so just kind of back and forth. And while you are moving it, yeah, you're probably going to be shifting the cape around a little bit along the ways as well. The arms, I was surprised, didn't give me any issues. I can't quite pull off a 90-degree angle bend, but I can pull off, I guess, somewhat the next best thing, a 45-degree angle bend, which is about half the trip. The arms do move forward and back. Like I said, the joints are actually pretty tight on this guy. Bend at the elbow, which nice and tight, rotates back and forth, and whatever hand you decide to display him with can also rotate all the way around as well. The torso is about the only thing that's loose on this figure. Surprisingly, like the legs, I thought would be having a dinner bell, but no, they're actually quite tight, actually. Maybe the lower knees could be using a little more tightening up. They seem to be a little loose. I think like the ball joint is probably the loosest on the torso here. For the lower legs, his legs split out. You can bring the legs forward and back. He has a bend at the knee, which again, a little on the loose side. Rotate that back and forth. He does have articulation back and forth on the feet. You can ankle pivot them this way. And yeah, you can technically rotate Batman's feet all the way around as well. That would likely shatter his ankle. Again, like the whole idea of really picking up these figures, I really want to stress the idea is that I don't necessarily condone picking up knockoffs. Sometimes, depending on what your wallet may be and the situation financially at the moment, that may be the only option that you have. Because, of course, if you're looking to source out the original 7-inch Batman from Batman Begins, the price point is going to be a little bit more expensive. This is certainly like not the next best thing, but the next available option that you can pick up. As it certainly goes for picking up a knockoff Batman, how does he deliver? He doesn't deliver that bad really at all. The joints are pretty tight on the guy. He has difficulty when it comes to the smaller accessories being things that could be loose, things he can't lose, but that was always the issue with the original Batman as well. If anything, I could say as one maybe calling card for the fact that this is a knockoff Batman is more so the paint that they did to the mouth area. It's a little splotchy, it's a little yellow, but apparently from what I've seen from what my friends have picked up, I think, again, I may have picked up the best Batman of the batch. This particular knockoff Batman's been circulating the interwebs for many years now. Generally, when you're looking at places like eBay and you type in NECA Batman Begins Batman and you immediately see the location that the shipper is sending from is China, it may be a telltale sign, especially the price point that it's being sold for, that you're going to be getting yourself a knockoff Batman. Again, one of the whole reasonings why I wanted to start getting into these reviews was more so to show you guys either the good, the bad, or in some cases, the ugly of picking up knockoff figures. For me, personally, if NECA Toys was to re-release the Batman Begins Batman, and probably it's just a case they don't have the licensing anymore, wholeheartedly, I would be picking up that Batman before the idea of picking up a knockoff. Joints can be more spindly, a little looser. In some cases, you may just have cheaper plastic. So again, the whole reasoning of me doing these is sort of more of a friendly 411 to you, the collecting community, as to whether it's worth still spending the money to pick up something that you know is going to be a knockoff, or if it's just a waste of money altogether. For Batman Begins Batman, short of the paint problems that he has in his face, he's not really that bad of a figure. Again, I would be all for the idea if NECA Toys just could re-release these figures, but if you are somebody that's a little bit harder on funds, or if you just can't afford the original price of what these things are being asked for, then yeah, I mean, I guess if you wanted to pick up a knockoff Batman, this is the kind of Batman figure that you're going to have and add to your collection. Again, it's not a bad Batman figure. It still has problems, of course, with his smaller accessories, but again, that really was the issue with the original Batman as well. So not much does get changed here with just, again, slightly sloppier paint, I think, in his face. Do you have the original Batman Begins Batman? If so, you could probably do a comparison with that Batman to this one right here. I really wish I still had that Batman. Somewhere along the ways, I probably just decided for myself I need to trim out my collection, and I just think I ultimately sold it. One of the reasons now, I guess I can now add this one back into my collection, although it kind of feels a little dirty, adding what I know to be a knockoff in my collection when I really want the legitimate thing instead. But again, for the time being, until we do get ourselves a re-release of this one down the road, possibly, this is going to be the Batman I'm going to have in my collection for the time being. If you guys are new to this channel and enjoying all the content you're seeing and enjoying the fact that we're having a look at some knockoff toys that generally I'm finding over at AliExpress, you'd be surprised how many hours a night just before bedtime I find myself surfing around on AliExpress to see what they have available. And it's not always just NECA stuff. They have knockoff stuff of different statues, different companies, different figures. There's a whole ton of stuff that you can really go down the rabbit hole and find yourself picking up. It is a bit of a trap. But if you guys are enjoying all the content you're seeing, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below, turn the bell notification on, and yeah, come back to this channel regularly, because Monday to Friday, 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we always have new videos popping up. And occasionally, we may be looking at a few other knockoff figures. So if that's the kind of thing that you fancy about this channel, make sure you're keeping your peepers peeled to this channel, because there will be more coming your way. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.